The story begins in London, with John witnessing another father hitting his son at a children's playground. A woman next to him confronts him about his behavior, but the man punches her and knocks her to the ground viciously. Rather than intervene, John flees, forgetting his daughter in the process. Not content with running away on that occasion, John decides he needs to do more of it and moves his young family to Coldwater in Scotland. Will they be happier up there? Well, they're soon invited to dinner by the neighbors, or the Christians, as John's wife Fiona dubs them. It's clear the couple have lost the spark in their marriage, as John refuses the advances of his wife, claiming there's too much going on to have sex, such as seeing his therapist. While taking the kids to school, John meets his Christian neighbor Tommy, who invites him to his Bible group before they have dinner. John doesn't seem keen. John tells his therapist Williams about his awkward encounter with his wife that morning, before revealing he was thinking about Fergie at the time. Not the Duchess of York, but the Black Eyed Peas singer, which is at least something to hold on to, as it were. John wants to go for a run, but he needs to pick up cough medicine for his son Harry, so he heads to the shop where he bumps into Angus, a local yob who's terrorizing the young woman behind the counter. He doesn't intervene, yet accidentally distracts Angus when he drops his shopping, before meekly running away with the lout's threats ringing in his ears, abandoning another vulnerable woman in the process. That evening John and Fiona head round to have dinner with their neighbors, Tommy and Rebecca. John peeks into the Bible group and finds them all discussing serial killers as Tommy explains how it was Ian Brady and the like that helped him find God. If perfect evil exists, then so too must perfect good, he blathers strangely. After that, John discusses his encounter with Angus and local pastor Rebecca says she has a soft spot for him. Later on, John confesses his trauma over the incident in the playground and how he abandoned his girl to Tommy. His new neighbor seems very interested in the whole fiasco and reassures him that he's a good man, before urging John to pray with him. When Fiona sees what they're doing, she's quite confused. "Call me any time," says Tommy as they leave. "He makes my skin crawl," Fiona tells her husband later on. Unable to sleep that evening, John decides to go out for the run he's been so keen on and soon finds his route taking him through the woods. For someone who's petrified of everything, it's a strange move and he instantly regrets it when he bumps into Angus, who lives in a cabin out there. Rather than just running off, after all he's probably in much better shape than the local yob and has plenty of form, he stands and takes the abuse Angus hurls at him, before the pair end up in a tussle. As John's being strangled on the ground, he reaches for a rock and smashes Angus face in, before running away and leaving him for dead. However, when he gets home, he meets Tommy and tells him all about the terrible thing he's done. John wants to tell the police, but Tommy tells him not to tell anyone. There are 3 steps out of this. Shower, sleep, silence, he says, telling him he'll deal with the body. However, what John doesn't realize is that he didn't kill Angus, but Tommy does when he heads off into the woods after parting ways with his new friend, before burning the young man's cabin with him inside to make it look like a terrible accident. But not before taking Angus' necklace and stashing it with some other pieces of jewelry in a dusty box in his shed. Did that other jewelry belong to Susie Bissett, who was murdered all those years ago? The following morning, Tommy goes to look at Angus' necklace in his special box in his shed, but when Rebecca disturbs him, he accidentally drops it on the floor. John comes round to visit him after going for another run, yet Tommy's son Cameron tells him his mom and dad have gone to church. "Did you enjoy your run last night?" he asks John as he leaves, before heading out to his father's shed, where he finds Angus' necklace on the floor. Determined to see Tommy, John suggests his family head off to church. "It'll be fun," he tells his unbelievably patient wife Fiona, unconvincingly. During the service, John heads to the front so that Tommy can pray for him, and asks his neighbor what happened when he found Angus. Tommy lies and tells him he was already dead when he found him. John is desperate to tell the police what happened, but Tommy persuades him not to. "You'll never see your wife and kids again," he says. However, after the service, Rebecca receives a call telling her about Angus' death and John faints right there in the graveyard. Later on, Fiona wonders if her husband feels guilty about his death because of the confrontation they had at the co-op. The next day, John returns to the scene of the crime to take a look at Angus' caravan, before popping down to the police station to confess. When he's there, he bumps into Bobby the Bobby from Tommy's Bible group. However, just as he's about to spill his guts, Tommy comes in and stops him by inviting him and Bobby to go hunting. When they get to the woods, Tommy issues John with a thinly veiled threat while handing him a gun, which causes him to, you guessed it, run away. Yet his bid to escape is cut short when Tommy shoots a stag in front of him and bloods him with it while putting it in the van. Tommy then apologizes to him for scaring him with the gun. "You have to see it from my point of view," he says. "You come to me with a problem. I try to help and be a good neighbor, but when I saw you at the police station, I felt betrayed and panicked." As they drive off, Bobby explains that Angus' death isn't being treated as suspicious and has been put down to falling asleep with a lit cigarette. They then head to the pub to drop off the stag, forcing a reluctant John to come along with them. However, he then orders whiskey for everyone, while secretly having an apple juice himself. When John gets drunk, he can't pick up the kids, leading to an argument with Fiona. Fiona then storms outside to do the recycling, where Tommy's son Cameron watches her through the window. When his mum catches him, she has a weird conversation with him about how he likes MILFs. She's very odd indeed. He responds by saying John seems a bit sus, although he agrees when she suggests he joins his father down the pub. Rebecca obviously had no idea John would be there as well, and after a couple of shandies, Cameron accuses him of spying on Catriona, whom Cameron has always had a thing for, and launches himself at him. Unsurprisingly, John doesn't fight back, but on his way home, he bumps into Angus' father and says there's something he needs to tell him. But what? Is he talking about John's midnight run or the necklace he found in his dad's shed? Meanwhile, John goes on quite the bender, while presumably Tommy is still drinking apple juice, and ends up staying the night at Catriona's. Apparently, they didn't do anything because he was too drunk, but it's still not a good look. After waking up, John receives a call from Tommy saying Fiona is round his house looking for him. Tommy tells John's wife he stayed with him and is taking a shower as he's feeling worse for wear, while also mentioning that Catriona might have a crush on her husband. John rushes back to Tommy's house as fast as he can, while Tommy quizzes Fiona most inappropriately about her private life. "Do you and John still make love?" As Fiona tries to leave, Rebecca arrives home, while Cameron watches their exchange from the stairs. When they get home, Fiona says she knows he didn't stay with Tommy last night and they have a big row, during which she calls him a nobody who does nothing, which seems quite fair. Next door, Rebecca catches her husband just as he's about to murder a cat, before she beckons him inside to speak to him about her upcoming sermon. It's all about the sins of David, especially murder. John and Fiona bicker as they head towards to Angus' funeral, yet they're watched with interest by their neighbor Rebecca, who will presumably be taking charge of proceedings as the local vicar. Before departing, she checks if her husband, Tommy, has any unhealthy compulsions or desires, before expressing her concern for John. "John is a weak man. I'm deep in his soul," says Tommy, eerily. Rebecca then asks if he took any trophies from his evil deed, yet when Tommy goes to check on the necklace, he finds it's missing. Tommy suspects their son Cameron has taken it. "It's the end of everything if he knows," says Rebecca. At the funeral, John is introduced to Nathan, Angus' father. At the wake, Fiona bumps into Catriona, which is excruciating for all concerned, especially John. Meanwhile, Rebecca asks Catriona if she knows where Cameron is. She doesn't know, but she drops him a text. Later on, we meet Moira Jane, a teacher who's undergoing counseling. It turns out this is Tommy's daughter, and when she leaves her appointment she's confronted by her brother Cameron, who seems to have come all the way to Glasgow to find her. "What if Dad comes looking for you?" she says. Cameron tells his sister about Angus' death and how he suspects his father and John had something to do with it. John had blood all over him, he says. He also knows it was Angus' necklace he found in his father's shed and shows it to his sister. Moira tells Cameron they will go to Coldwater in the morning to find out what's happening. That evening, John and Fiona are hosting a dinner party for Jez and Pippa, their friends from London. Through them, they learn that Matthew and Jess are getting a divorce, which their pals thought was old news, but clearly wasn't. It turns out Matthew is the man that Fiona had an affair with, which makes things rather awkward to say the least. Next door, Tommy is determined to speak to Catriona to find out what Cameron knows, but Rebecca says he can't be trusted to be with a woman alone tonight. So Tommy says he'll persuade John to come along, as she trusts him. However, arrives at John's house, he overhears Fiona laying into him and telling everyone how he quizzed her over their sex lives. That doesn't stop him bursting into their meal and demanding that John come with him to help look for Cameron though, reminding John of the favor he did for him. Fiona assumes he's talking about helping John cover up his illicit night with Catriona, so he tells her the truth about that night, before saying kissing a barmaid isn't the same as sleeping with his best friend. When they arrive at Catriona's, Tommy bursts in after John knocks on the door and runs upstairs to rifle through her phone. She tells Tommy she thinks Cameron has gone to Glasgow, but Tommy wants more. When she tells him to shove it, he grabs her by the neck and throws her against the wall. John watches the terrible assault helplessly before finally helping her as she chases them out, armed with a knife. John returns home covered in blood, again. And this time it's Angus' father Nathan who spies him. After cleaning himself up, he crawls into his children's tent in the garden. Next door, Rebecca is on the phone with her daughter, who tells her she's bringing Cameron back to Coldwater tomorrow. "What if they go to the police?" says Tommy, before admitting that things got a little out of hand at Catriona's. The creepy pair then profess their love for each other, before Tommy attacks John's cat, Harlequin. Hearing the squeals, John leaves the tent to find his cat dead outside his house. Seeing that Tommy looks happy and 10 years younger, Rebecca guesses that her husband killed their neighbor's cat and is worried it's a sign of things to come. However, she seems excited rather than horrified by his actions. There's no time to dwell on it, though, because their kids are home and they want to be a happy family. It's clear Moira Jane has put some distance between her and her parents, although we learn she was adopted when she starts talking to her mother about her therapy. In the car, Tommy chats to Cameron and asks him if he's taken anything that belongs to him. Cameron says he hasn't. Next door, Catriona pays Fiona a visit to reveal the truth about what happened last night and how Tommy grabbed her by the throat, but John managed to save her. "Tommy has to be stopped," she says. "Don't let John be fooled by him." Meanwhile, John is on a playdate at the playground when Angus' father, Nathan, approaches him. John admits that he had met Angus before, explaining how they'd clashed at the shop, although when he says he never told the police, Nathan seems surprised. He tells John he will tell the police, because he believes his son was murdered. He then tells John he knows he was covered in blood the night his son died, which makes him the prime suspect in his eyes. John asks Nathan to wait until the next day before going to the cops, so he can talk to his wife. But when he gets home, Fiona explains what Katrina told her. John explains how he's not friends with Tommy anymore, and that he suspects him of killing the cat. Across the road, Moira Jane and Cameron are telling their mother how they believe John killed Angus and that Tommy helped him cover it up. Rebecca lies and says that John had an accident while he was out running and that Tommy went to the church to get a first aid kit. However, Cameron then shows her the necklace he found in Tommy's shed. Thinking quickly, Rebecca says Angus and Tommy used to be close, so Nathan gave him the necklace, before castigating her children for suspecting their father. Moira Jane feels terrible, but Cameron doesn't believe her story. We wouldn't be surprised to find Tommy had sabotaged it so he could get Nathan in his car. Nathan finally hops into Tommy's car, and as they drive off into the middle of a deserted forest, Tommy starts quizzing him about his conversation with John earlier that day. Under pressure, Nathan explains how he's going to the police about John, although Tommy explains how it was actually him who killed Angus, explaining with dead-eyed malevolence that he just wanted to, then strangles Nathan with his own seatbelt. When Tommy gets home, Rebecca demands to know what he's been up to, before he explains how he killed Nathan because he had a witness who saw John covered in blood. Rebecca tells him the witness is Cameron and about how the kids confronted her with their suspicions about him, although she talked her way out of it. We then get more of a glimpse into this couple's depraved world, as Tommy says his actions haven't gone against their agreement not to kill any women. It's time for the Bible group, although some of Tommy's pals are clearly fed up with reading about serial killers. They're also not keen on the hot tub, but Tommy demands they all get in there and soon opens up about how much he now hates God. Next door, John confesses his fears about Tommy to Fiona, but stops short of following through on his intention to tell her what he did to Angus. Yet as they're burying the cat with their kids, Fiona storms round to Tommy's house to confront him about what he did to their cat. Fiona storms outside to accuse Tommy, before slapping him. He grabs her and throws her violently to the floor in front of his Bible group. "What an embarrassment of a wife you have, John," says Tommy. When John punches him, Tommy holds him under the water, but lets him up before he drowns, as Rebecca watches on coolly. When they get home, John finally tells Fiona that he killed Angus, but will she believe him? Meanwhile, back at Tommy's, Moira Jane has stumbled upon her adopted father's stash of trophies. In there, she finds a collar with Harlequin engraved upon it. The next morning, Tommy heads back to the woods to bury Nathan's body. However, he's too late because the leader of a ghost tour has stumbled across Angus' father's remains. Back at his house, after realizing the truth about her father, Moira Jane is trying to get in touch with Cameron, who's still at Catriona's. Cameron is convinced John murdered Angus, but she thinks the real killer could be someone a little bit closer to home, and heads to church, where his mother embraces him. Meanwhile, John feels relieved after he finally explains to his wife Fiona how he killed Angus and how he promised Nathan he'd go to the police with him. She urges him to consult a lawyer instead, but he refuses. However, before he can speak to the police, John learns that Nathan's body has been found in the woods. As for Cameron, he's consumed by guilt, believing John murdered Nathan after finding out he knew he'd been seen covered in blood on the night of Angus' death. Nathan confides in his mother, Rebecca, who immediately latches onto the theory and adds more weight to it by explaining how cut up John was at church the morning after Angus' death. John returns home to tell Fiona about Nathan's death, and she immediately guesses that Tommy did it. However, John believes Tommy did it to protect him because he killed Angus and begins wallowing in his own regret. Yet just then, Fiona says she doesn't believe his story. "I don't think you killed Angus," she says, before explaining that she doesn't think he's got it in him, mentally or physically. "You only know he was dead because Tommy told you," she continues, explaining that she thinks Tommy killed Angus and Nathan because he wanted to. And down at the church, Rebecca is telling everyone about the row Nathan had with John at the play park on the day he died. However, whether Moira Jane will be fooled is another matter, and she's looking through her father's box of trophies in the garage, taking photos of all of them, when Tommy gets home. While all this is going on, Rebecca gets home shouting for Tommy angrily, until she notices Moira Jane and then lowers her tone as she explains how the police have found Nathan's body. Rebecca takes her husband aside and reads him the riot act. "You weren't like this when you were younger. You used to be so clinical," she says before telling him how she started a rumor putting the blame on John. Later that day, the two couples share a tense encounter outside, where Fiona subtly winds Tommy up by casting aspersions at the slack manner in which the body was left lying around for anyone to find. She and John are now on the same page for the first time in years and decide to try and force a reaction out of Tommy in front of everyone at that evening's memorial for Nathan. Next door, Rebecca is telling Tommy how she wants this nightmare over and their lives to go back to how they were before. At the pub, Moira Jane comes looking for Cameron, but bumps into Catriona, who tells her old friend she thinks Tommy, and not John, is the murderer everyone is after. She then opens up about how Tommy attacked her and how it wasn't the first time he has done so. "When I was a teenager, he followed me when I was walking home alone and grabbed me by the throat," she explains. At the prayer meeting, rumors about John are circulating with a vengeance, so when he and his family arrive, they don't get the warmest reception. Bobby the Bobby pulls him to one side and tells him about the accusations being laid at his door. "I don't believe you killed Nathan, but you need to watch your back," he says. John then heads towards Tommy and the pair share a frosty face-off, in which they both argue about who's going to pray for who. John wins and issues a host of thinly veiled accusations through the medium of godliness. It's the first time we see him getting one over on Tommy, who seems shocked and affronted, but the people of Coldwater don't see it that way, and John and Fiona's car is attacked outside. When John and Fiona get home, they get a visit from Moira Jane, who claims her mother is lovely, but Tommy is different. She then shows them the photos she took of her father's box of trophies. "We have to get that box," says John. "It's the only way to stop him." John and Fiona invite Tommy and Fiona around to theirs for lunch, hoping to give Moira Jane time alone in the house to try and find that box. They agree to come. However, Tommy smells a rat and invites Moira Jane to come with them. "They think they're smarter than us," he says, pressing a mysterious ring into her hand before they go. During lunch, Moira Jane spills wine all over John, giving him an excuse to slip out and try and find the box in Tommy's house. However, Rebecca has a plan of her own and slips the ring Tommy gave her into the kids' toys while on her way to the toilet. John manages to find Tommy's box in his garage, but can't escape with it, and the creepy Christian catches him in the act. A tense standoff follows, with John confronting him about all of his suspicions, yet Tommy nervously denies everything, even though John is holding Harlequin's collar. Tommy then tasers John and ties him up and throws him in his car. John is lying in the back of Tommy's car as he speeds away from the house and realizes things aren't looking great for him. Luckily, he manages to jump out of the car as they drive along a lake and makes it to the house of his therapist Williams, who's going to have a task on his hands working through all this. Minutes later, Tommy turns up brandishing a rifle and forces his way inside Williams' house. He assaults him when he won't reveal where John is, so John leaps out to protect him, and the pair are involved in another tussle. Just when it looks like Tommy's getting on top, Williams picks the madman's rifle and orders him to let John go. However, Tommy insists it's John who's the deranged killer and asks him to call Bobby the Bobby if he doesn't believe him. "It's Tommy," Williams tells Bobby. "He's the killer." Meanwhile, Tommy persuades John that he needs to call Rebecca before the police arrive, as she doesn't know anything about what he's been up to. Pretending he has no reception, he goes outside to make the call, while John has the gun trained on him. When Tommy sets off with John in his boot, Fiona reveals the truth about everything he's done to his wife Rebecca, including what she knows about the box of trophies. Although of course she knows already. Rebecca lies and claims she doesn't know what Fiona's talking about, before collapsing into a heap and sobbing. "I've been so scared for so long," she cries. When she gets Tommy's call, she pretends to be shocked and relieved, before giving her husband a coded message to let him know she's cutting him adrift and he's on his own. "Whatever you've done, it's over." Yet when Fiona's out of earshot, she tells him to run. As they wait for the police, Tommy asks John to run away with him, then asks him to kill him, threatening to kill his wife and his kids if he doesn't. He then plunges at John, and the next thing we see is John lying in his wife's arms with a terrible wound, as Rebecca looks towards the mountains. It's clear Tommy has escaped. However, John survives to tell the tale and continues to live in Coldwater, telling reporters the whole experience has strengthened his marriage. In the series denouement, we find that Tommy is on the run. John continues to live in Coldwater and rejoins the book group, which still meets at Tommy's house. "Rebecca likes us being here," says Williams. She finds it reassuring. However, from the evil look we see her giving John, it's clear this isn't finished as far as she's concerned. As for his son Cameron, it's clear he also believes his father is innocent. And of course, Nathan's ring is still sitting in the toy basket at John and Fiona's house. Here Season 1 of Cold Water ends.